Continuing some selected readings from the Cloud of Unknowing. Thrust ourselves right into the Cloud of Unknowing, to chapter 24. What has been said of humility? How is it subtly and completely contained within this little blind thrust of love when it is beating upon the dark cloud of unknowing, with everything else thrust down and forgotten, should also be understood of all other virtues, and especially of charity. For you should understand that charity means nothing but to love God for himself above all created beings, and to love other human beings equally with yourself for God's sake. It appears very clearly that in this work of contemplation, God is love for himself and above all created beings. For, as was said previously, the substance of contemplation is nothing but a better intention directed towards God for himself. I call it a better intention because in this work an apprentice to perfection asks neither release from pain nor increase of reward, nor, in a word, anything but God himself, so that he neither cares, not considers whether he is in pain or in bliss, so long as the will of the one he loves is fulfilled. And so it is evident that in this work God is love for himself and above all created beings, for while engaged in contemplation, a perfect worker cannot allow thoughts even of the holiest being that God ever made to enter his mind. It appears from experience that in this way the second owned lower branch of charity towards your fellow Christians is truly and completely fulfilled. A perfect worker in contemplation has no regard to any specific person for his own sake, whether kin or stranger, friend or foe, for all alike seem kin to him, and none seems a stranger. All seem his friends, and none his enemies, so that for him all those who torment him and cause him distress on earth are his particular friends, and he feels moved to desire as much good for them as he would for the closest friends he has. We read from chapter 24 of the Cloud of Unknowing. For somebody who's in the unknown cloud, he seems to know a lot. And harmonically accompanying this, we're reading The Way of Unknowing, which is John Main's way. Questions on answers. You question. You sound impatient about communicating this teaching. How do you explain that? Shouldn't we leave it to God to persuade people? Answer: yes, I think that the impatience that I feel is that there seems so few who are on the way. But I think that you are perfectly right. The timing is God's, and once we realize that he calls us, basically what we can do is to say our mantra. There is nothing much else we can do. Apart from that, we cannot begin to tear our lives apart and try to restructure them. That leads to disaster for us and for others. We can say our mantra, and we can follow the gift that is given to us from then on. But, I think all of us need to feel a certain impatience or urgency, if that is a better word, because the body of Christians as a whole, the body of the world as a whole, is so slow. Slow even to start on the way, and is so distracted by totally frivolous things. What I am saying, and so far as I was being critical of of it, was simply that we foolishly postponed starting. The important thing is to start. Question. I think an analogy would be a biblical line, quote, let your light so shine before men, unquote. That tends to express the experience of the presence of God you speak of in a way that has it somehow show through you. Would it help to see it that way? Answer. Yes, I think so. I don't think we have to go down to an electrical store to get a plug and to put ourselves in the socket. I think that what is important is to have men and women of growing maturity. That is what St. Paul is talking about, and that maturity or wholeness is in Christ. That is the urgent thing. That is what calls for our involvement, our engagement in, my God, in French. Engagement in French now. I think we should really be engagé, engagé in that process. Just as one such person will save a city so that that one person, quote, on the pilgrimage, unquote, can save a city. I think this is what we have to do in our lives. Each of us must be prepared to be that one person. That is the basis of commitment for an authoritative community, a true church. We also need to be aware of our responsibility to hand on the traditions. It can be handed on in various ways. So St. Paul says, quote, some of us are teachers, some are preachers, unquote. As meditators, we do hand it on, principally through the effect that meditation has in our lives. As you rightly say, we must all sense the urgency that is involved. St. Paul says, quote, these are evil times, unquote. We are still living in a world based on a power structure that is very fragile and totally unchristian. We have really got to develop that urgent sense of the importance of being on the way. What does the word mean? Answer, maranatha comes from come, Lord. Come, Lord. Come, Lord. You can use another mantra, but the mantra that I recommend you to use is maranatha. To begin with, I think it is important to use it if you can. The essence of the mantra, as I have suggested to you, is that it brings you to silence. Silence. It is not a magic word. It is not a word that has any esoteric properties to it, or anything like that. It is simply a word that is sacred in our tradition. Maranatha is possibly the oldest Christian prayer there is after the Our Father. It is a word that brings us to great peacefulness, to rest and calm. Certainly, to begin with, I would recommend you to use a word that has at least an open A vowel sound in it. I think that everything considered, the best word you can use to start with is maranatha. As you question, are you supposed actually to see the light? No. Answer, no, that is just a figurative expression. Actually, this is wrong now. You're supposed, I'm correcting that. Yes, you are supposed to see the light. Once you see first the stars, and then you see the big star, then you can see the moon, and then the moon breaks open and you see the sun. So you could see the stars. That was incorrect. I just corrected John Maine. Maybe I should cross it out. He was wrong. God. This guy is wrong. But you can not see the light as well and still meditate. What happens if you do? Answer, ignore it. What you may find when you are beginning to meditate is that all sorts of psychic phenomena are present. For some people, those who think might like to think of themselves as more normal, nothing at all happens. Other people, maybe those who have more imagination or a stronger psyche or something else, will sometimes see colors or cloud formations or particular images. Or they may well hear beautiful singing, or like the music of the spheres, or harmonies. They might hear the harmonies. But the important thing is to go straight through all these phenomena. They are not at all important in themselves. They are much more likely to be associated with your liver and what you had for dinner than with any deep spiritual experience. Not everyone likes to hear this, of course, but the important thing is to say the mantra in a growing spirit of poverty and fidelity. Some ways he's correct in this, so he's both correct and not correct. John Maine is, we found to be both correct and not correct. But very good either way. Otherwise, we wouldn't have read him.
Why don't you read more?
Read more, I can't. I have to stop.
Why do you stop there exactly?
Because I'm out of time at 14 minutes.
You don't think how to meditate?
I'll have to continue. I'm out of time.
This